Marion County. We're really excited about today's announcement. Want to thank Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing, really cool in there if you guys haven't been able to see it, for hosting us today. I also want to recognize our Florida Department of Transportation Secretary Jared Perdue, our Marion County Chairwoman for the County Commission, Kathy Bryant, our Senator Stan McClain, as well as our Representative Ryan Chamberlain. We also have other members of the County Commission here. We also have Chuck Keppel, who's the GM here at Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing. I want to thank all of you for doing this. Before I talk about what we're going to do today, I do just want to give a synopsis of yesterday's announcement that we made, because I think it's really important. Florida, we were Doge before Doge was cool. If you look, since when I became governor, we had 2019. So if you look at all the debt that Florida had from the 1840s until I became governor, just in my term, we've paid off 41% of the state's total historical debt. Could you imagine if they did that in Washington? We now have the lowest per capita debt burden of anybody in the United States of America, of all 50 states. As a Floridian, if you had to pay off your share of the state's debt, I think it's about $660. If you, as an American, had to pay off your share of the national debt, it'd be over $100,000 per person. So this is just much different in terms of what we're doing. We've also been able to prune unnecessary regulations. We've retired different boards and commissions. We've had major tax relief. This year, our current fiscal year, we actually have a budget that spends less than the year before by billions of dollars. When have you ever seen people actually reducing spending? And then, because we're constantly going through this to see what we can do, so over the last many months, we've identified an additional 70 boards and commission that we're slating for abolishment. We need to get legislative approval for that, so I think members of the legislature are eager to get on the Doge train, so we are going to submit that. That'll reduce many, many boards and commissions and then have a lot of positions. And in my budget this year, we called for a net reduction of 700 plus government positions throughout state government. So we have the lowest number of state government workers per capita in the entire United States of America. And that's the way you do it. If you talk to people that move from New York and come to Florida, and just for the record, I'm not asking anybody to move to Florida. We've got a lot of people. It's not always easy to accommodate, but it is a free country, and you got to take it as it goes. People vote with their feet. But when people come from New York, so New York State, we now have millions of more residents than New York State does. They used to have way more people than we do. We were kind of similar for much of maybe the last decade leading into the 2020s, but now we have millions more folks than they do in New York. And yet, even with millions of more people, our budget is less than half of New York State budget. Yet, would you rather go to the DMV here or there? Would you rather drive on our roads or their roads? I mean, it's just crazy how much it costs, and they tax people to no end, and so it's really a vicious cycle. So we showed less than half the budget, millions of more people, yet deliver services that are better, deliver education, all the things that you want to do. So don't tell me that this can't be done. It, of course, can be done. And meanwhile, while we've been doing all of that, while we have the smallest government per capita, while we've reduced the debt, cut taxes, even reduced spending year over year, we have made historic investments in things that really impact the quality of life of Floridians. One of the things that we've done is major billions of dollars in increase for education and teacher salaries and scholarships for school choice. No one's ever seen anything like what we've been able to do with that. We've also done huge support for conservation efforts. We have the big Florida Wildlife Corridor. We have Everglades restoration. We have all these things that a lot of people didn't think were possible. We're doing it. It's not just the money, but that's important. It's also the leadership to be able to get it done, and we're doing that. But one of the things that we did a couple years ago is we looked around. In Florida, we have one of the best transportation departments and road building exercises of anywhere in the country. If you drive on our roads, not that everything's perfect, but compare that. I mean, you drive around New York City, it's like you get motion sickness because it's like up and down, all this stuff. So they've done a good job. At the same time, when you have people moving into the state, and whatever the resident number is, like right now in Florida, you got to add a couple million to that because of all the people that are visiting. You know, they say, oh, Canada's upset at the United States. Canadians are going to rethink coming to Florida. No, they're not rethinking it. I see these license plates everywhere. So they're here. So we have that, and that's just a reality. And again, I can't control whether people come or not. It's a free country. You're allowed to pick up and move to different states. So we have to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to support this and to get ahead of it so we're preserving or improving the quality of life. So we launched a program a couple years ago called Moving Florida Forward. Because we had such an enormous budget surplus, we were able to take many billions of dollars, plow it into our current transportation program, take projects that weren't even scheduled to start till next decade, immediately infuse those with cash, start them as soon as possible, and then deliver the final result 5-10 years ahead of schedule. And you're seeing that all over the state with what we're doing. You know we have some areas that have some significant issues around the state. Obviously, we're here for one of those reasons. And so these billions of dollars are being put to use, and they are going to make a difference on quality of life. So what are some of the things that we're doing? We have at least 20 major interstate and roadway projects across the state that have been expedited through this initiative, including expansion of lanes and the addition of express lanes along I-4 in Polk and Osceola counties. I mean, I think people have been on I-4. The ultimate was great. That helped. But once you get past where that was done and the lanes are less, it's not even a rush hour thing. You could be there at any time of the day, and there could be a backup. So this is going to have a major, major impact in Osceola and Polk counties, especially as people go to and from different parts of Central Florida. We also are funding and moving up the addition of regular express lanes on I-75 in Pinellas County. Those improvements are anticipated to reduce travel delays by almost 85%. Then it also adds capacity in case of hurricane evacuations, and unfortunately, we had to do that this past hurricane season with both Helene and Milton leading to evacuation orders in the Tampa Bay area. We also are doing a redesign of Golden Glades interchange on I-95 in Miami-Dade. Helps the major corridors get in there. It's a very difficult part of the state to make traffic improvements because it's all built out, so we don't have as many options, but this will make a big, big difference. We're also doing the Fruitville interchange on I-75 in Sarasota, changing it to a diverging diamond design. You know, I see these plans and I look at that and I ask Jared, like, how do you know? Oh, we've tested it. It's so much better if you do it. So they do test all these things. And when we're doing designs, it's proven to increase the traffic flow. So you're going to have that. They say that's going to increase volume capacity by 40,000 vehicles just in that one exchange. And so that's really, really big. We're also widening US 98 in Bay County. We want to provide better access to Panama City Beach as well as the business. The Panhandle, unbelievable the amount of people that have moved there in the last 5-6 years. I mean, I remember during COVID, you know, we obviously wanted everyone to do what they wanted, but some local governments were difficult at first. I eventually just wiped the slate clean in the summer of 2020. But, you know, you go to like Memorial Day of 2020, we were 2 months into COVID. If you were in like Fort Lauderdale, they tried to have different things. You were in the Panhandle, you didn't even know COVID existed. I mean, it was just like a normal thing. I had people, Texas, Louisiana license plates, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all converge on the Panhandle, on 30A and all these places. It was unbelievable. And their summer of 2020 was the best summer for them in terms of revenue. This is in the height of COVID. That was the best that they had ever had in the history of the Panhandle, and it's only grown since then. People there, they want to move there. It used to be kind of people knew about it. Now you have people all over the country that know about it, so this is really going to be important for them. We're also realigning US 301 from County Road 470 to Florida's Turnpike in Sumter County. That as an anticipated reduction in delays during peak hours of almost 94%. So these are things that are really significant. When you're doing groundbreaking now instead of in 15 years, that obviously is a big win for people. And some of these places like Champions Gate off of I-4, you can have really big bottlenecks. To say we'll get around to it in like 2034 when it's already intolerable now, and we had the means to do something about it, wasn't acceptable. So we decided to do it, and we're really looking forward to do it. So our total investment in infrastructure over the next 5 years is going to be almost $70 billion. And again, that's reducing congestion, improving safety, and addressing the future needs. Which brings us to today. I think people that travel around Florida and have a good knowledge of everything know where some of the pressure points are. And I think that both tourists and residents alike have seen what you can have in the way of traffic on I-75 here in the Ocala area. You can have major backups, standstill traffic, and again, that's not necessarily just limited to rush hour. That can happen at any time of the day. This is one of the most used, if not the most used, tourist corridors. 15% of all visitors to Florida come down I-75 from Georgia. We also have major freight that's moved across I-75. And as we saw again this past year, I-75 is essential for hurricane evacuations. During Hurricane Milton, we implemented emergency shoulder use on I-75 so that people on the West Coast could evacuate quickly and safely. And we were able to safely evacuate millions of people out of harm's way. Now, on evacuations, we always stress you don't necessarily even have to get on an interstate. There's usually shelters within your county, but we know people want to get out of Dodge, and so that's what happened. And so they look at that. People always ask, every time we do this, we open the shoulder, and you do that at once the traffic gets to a certain level, you open the shoulder, because there's a little bit of risk in that, so you don't do that willy-nilly, and want people to be safe, you do it. People will always say, are you going to do contraflow where you shut down going south so everyone can go north? No, it doesn't work. This has been studied. They've done it. There's safety issues to it, of course, but it just doesn't work. And you also need to flow both ways because as you may, as a resident, want to evacuate, we are bringing in first responders to go into the eye of the storm to be able to respond. Our utility workers, all these things. Heck, in the Milton, we had major flooding in Port Manatee and Port Tampa Bay, and it knocked out their operations for a couple days. That's where a lot of the gasoline comes in. So we set up like these mini gas stations around the west coast of Florida. People could come in and get free gas, get in the line with these massive tankers. And it's like, okay, we had to fill a need, we'll do it. But the reality is we bring a lot of stuff in. So it worked really well, and we're happy to be able to do that. Now, with moving Florida forward, we are able to infuse $541 million to accelerate this I-75 project, where we are creating more lanes on I-75 between State Road 44 and State Road 326. That is going to make a difference for people. That is going to make it better for traveling in this direction. This was something that is being accelerated by between 10 and 15 years, depending on how the schedule would shake out. And I looked at that, I saw the traffic, I'm like, I've got money in the kitty, like we can't wait 15 years, we gotta get going now. So I'm happy that we'll be able to do. These auxiliary lanes will cover over 31 miles. And again, that's from Wildwood, State Road 44 to State Road 326 in Ocala. And again, that's 10 and 15 years ahead of schedule. And because we advanced this Moving Florida Forward project, Florida Department of Transportation was able to begin work on the new 49th Street interchange, which is going to have a major economic impact. They came to me a couple years ago. Maybe it was maybe 2 years ago, and they said, Governor, we have a request from either Marion County or the city of Ocala or something for job growth grant funding. So I have job growth. I can give it out for infrastructure and job training. And they're like, they want to create this interchange on Northwest 49th Street off I-75. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then they're going, and I'm like, look, I get pitched on a lot of things, right? I mean, it just goes with the job. And so I'm just kind of going, they're going through some stuff. And then I'm like, all right, I didn't commit to anything. And then whoever was briefing me paused, kind of looked up at me and said, oh, by the way, sir, if we do this interchange, they will be able to do a Buc-ee's right there off the exit. I said, sign me up. I am good with that. And so there is going to be a Buc-ee's. And when we said we would do the interchange and everything, Buc-ee's did the announcement. I think we did an announcement here. I remember they were throwing out candy and stuff to people. And at the time of the announcement, it was the largest Buc-ee's in the entire United States. Have all you been to who has been to a Buc-ee's before? Okay, most of you. I mean, it's like the Shangri-La of service stations. It is unbelievable. And it's like merchandise. It's got, if you want beef jerky, they make it on site. Barbecue, ice cream stuff, I mean, you name it, they have it. It is, once people do the Buc-ee's, it's kind of something that they always want to do. It's funny because the owner of Buc-ee's is a friend of mine. He's been supportive politically, and he's involved in Texas. And sometimes if you're involved on one side, the other side wants to attack you. So I remember there was a couple years ago, there was an effort. These are like probably paid left-wing groups. They wanted to boycott Buc-ee's because the owner had given to like Governor Abbott. And I'm like, yeah, that boycott ain't going to work very well. People are not giving up Buc-ee's. Don't worry about that. So we're going to be able to do that, and I think it's going to be really good. The first Buc-ee's went in St. Augustine off I-95 on the World Golf Village. The second Buc-ee's went in off I-95 on LPGA Boulevard in Daytona Beach. And both of those have been wildly successful. Then you're going to have this one, and they've also announced they are going to be doing a Buc-ee's off I-10 near Tallahassee, which is going to revolutionize driving on I-10. I can tell you that right now. So we're looking forward to all of that. So this is going to be really, really good. The regional economic impact of all of this is expected to exceed $2.3 billion. And so, we're meeting the needs that the people have in this part of the state, but also just people who want to come to Florida, who want to travel through. We know it's important. I don't know how you can possibly keep up with the population growth of the villages. I mean, it's unbelievable. They'll do home housing. They'll do new housing starts across the country. And there'll be places that are kind of booming, and then the villages is like this, but they're always number one. It's like nonstop boom, and they have Marion, they have Sumter, they have Lake, they have all kind of places around there. And so it's just a lot, right? And it puts stress on infrastructure. So we're responding here. We're going to hear from some other folks in a minute. And then after that, I'll probably take a few questions. Then we'll go over and we will actually do the groundbreaking of this project. And so I just think it's important to reflect this groundbreaking would have happened in like 2035 or 2036 had we not done our Moving Florida Forward initiative. And part of the reason we were able to do it is because we've had a strong economy. We've been wise with your money. We generated big surpluses. And it was actually to the point we're like cutting billions of dollars in taxes. We're paying down debt, and I still got all this money. And we've quadrupled the rainy day fund almost since I've been governor. We've got plush reserves, but it's like, okay, if you're going to have to do these projects anyways, we know we're going to spend the money. Why don't we just do it now and actually get it done so that people can benefit? So thanks for everyone that's been involved in this. I think this is a really monumental day for the state of Florida. This is only one of many projects that have either already broken ground or will soon break ground, and many projects that will be completed, not just ahead of schedule, but 5, 10, even 15 years ahead of schedule. That is something that as a taxpayer of Florida, you should be proud of. Okay, Jared Perdue, Florida Department of Transportation.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership. And as you heard from the governor, we were Doge before Doge was cool. And what better way to be an example for government efficiency than to deliver more infrastructure and deliver it faster? That's exactly what we're doing here in Florida under the governor's leadership. This I-75 project 2 years ago was just an idea. We went from an idea to construction in just 2 years. And that's really because of the governor's leadership and this idea to bring general revenue surplus to infrastructure when Florida is growing faster than it's ever grown before. So we really appreciate the governor's leadership, and I can tell you, with Governor DeSantis at the helm, our employees come to work, and they work hard, and they stay until the job is done. That's exactly what you're going to see here on I-75. We're super excited about this investment, and you're going to start to see a lot of work happening out there, and it is going to bring congestion relief, as many of you know, to one of the worst sections of interstate in the entire state of Florida. So if you look at what we're able to do, you also heard from the governor, as part of this Moving Florida Forward project on I-75, we're also advancing the 49th Street interchange here in Marion County. I can tell you that's only possible because of the great partnership we have with Marion County. That interchange is going to connect a local road loop all the way around the Ocala area. It's going to create tremendous growth, not only as Buc-ee's coming to town, which we're very excited about, but there's a ton of industrial development plan. It's going to create thousands of jobs, and as you heard from the governor, it's going to have over a $2 billion economic impact. So we're really excited to do that. Another great example of DOGE advancing more infrastructure as part of the governor's initiative. So thank you for that. If you look at this project specifically, it's nearly $550 million. The construction duration will be 3 to 4 years, and we are adding an additional lane of capacity in each direction on I-75. And this is the biggest problem you have, especially even if you just have a stalled out vehicle on the shoulder. It can create a 10, 12, sometimes 15-mile backup. I know many of you have been stuck in it. I've been stuck in it many times myself and wondered, I wish I knew somebody who could fix that. So we're excited about that. 3 to 4 years, construction will be done. You're going to see huge relief here in the Marion County area, and it's going to be great for the entire community. So thank you, Governor, for your leadership.
Okay.
What an exciting day in Marion County, and I want to give a big thank you on behalf of the Marion County Commission to Governor DeSantis and to FDOT for moving this project forward sooner than later. For all of us who live here in Marion County and have to travel on I-75 on possibly a daily basis, we understand the congestion that can happen out there. As a matter of fact, I canceled 2 trips that I had to make down to Orlando in the last couple of weeks because before I got on the interstate, I grabbed my phone, I typed in my destination, and what should have taken me an hour and 15 minutes was going to take me 2.5 hours. So I then rearranged my schedule so I could get up at the crack of dawn and make that trip, which at that point only took me an hour and 15 minutes. This Moving Florida Forward initiative is going to make a huge difference in Marion County, not just to move traffic much better, but it is going to be a huge economic impact for us as well. And we couldn't be more excited, as the county was the one that brought that Buc-ee's project forward. I had to take a little credit for that. But we're super, super excited. We know the difference that this is going to make. The auxiliary lanes are going to be a huge improvement. And it's just a great day in Marion County. And I want to thank you, Governor, from the bottom of my heart for picking Marion County and picking this project as one of the ones that you move forward when you knew that you had that surplus, and not making us wait another 10 to 15 years, because as everyone in Marion County knows, we need this project and we need it now. So again, thank you to the governor, thank you to FDOT and their staff for everything that you've done to make today happen. Thank you.
Well, good morning. It truly is a great day in Marion County, home of thoroughbred horses and a little stretch of I-75 here that we all know has had some challenges over the last several years, and certainly it's been a choking point for folks going north and south. And it's one of the questions that I get asked a lot by my colleagues and other folks even that work in state government. They say to me, they say, Senator, when are you going to get I-75 fixed so we can get back and forth? And so Governor DeSantis, I applaud you for the recognition that a strong, well-functioning transportation network creates prosperity and drives economic development. I appreciate the leadership and vision in crafting moving Florida forward, the initiative. Secretary Perdue, to you and your team, who I have seen the governor tell you many times, get faster, and you guys respond in the right way. And so it's going to allow this section of I-75 to be completed way ahead of schedule. And it actually helps me because now I will be able to say to all of you, to my colleagues, to everyone in Florida who asks me, when is that going to get done? I can tell them today is the day. Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone that's been involved in this. We did this a couple years ago, so I think it was the legislative session, maybe 2023, where we worked with them to get this teed up. We had to make some adjustments in 24 to make sure everything was good, but we've been off to the races on all these projects. It's really exciting. You know, we also did stuff when COVID hit. You had companies like the white collar people, a lot of them were work from home. Now, we never, said work from, people could, do what they want. Now I think like people need to be in the office, but at the time there were a lot of people that were opting to do that. So the traffic really went down on our roadways, and so we accelerated things like I-4 in Orlando, some of these other things, because you could close more lanes and it really wouldn't make as big of an impact. And so as other people were kind of cowering, we're like, we're going to use this opportunity to really move some projects forward, and those projects have been very, very beneficial. It's been very helpful to see some of the stuff that's happened in different parts of the state. So thanks to everybody that's been involved. Appreciate our legislative partners. Appreciate FDOT. Appreciate everyone that helped bring this to fruition. Okay, I can take a few questions, and then we're going to move, and then we're going to do this. So yes.
You mentioned the 49th Northwest 49th Street. When is that time? What's the timeline for that? When might that happen?
49th Street. When is that estimated?
So the total duration is 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Total duration 3 to 4 years for that one. Yep. Yes.
When will we receive a list of the 70 boards and commissions that you've slated for?
Soon. Yeah, you'll see them soon. I had mentioned in my opening comments, I talked about it in our press conference yesterday. Florida, for whatever reason, has created over the years all these boards and commissions, and it's like I got to appoint people to all these things, and you got thousands of this stuff, and it's like, okay, do we really need a board for some of this stuff? We have abolished some boards already. We did that as part of our occupational licensing overhaul in 2019. It was barriers to entry for people. We wanted them to be like, you shouldn't have to get a special license if you want to be a hair braider. You can either braid hair or you can't, right? And so it's like, let people do it. Let people apply their trade. So we got rid of, it was just things like that were really antiquated. So we did. Now there's also other things that are in law that just haven't been used. There's other things that are just ineffective. There's things that are unnecessary. There are certain professions that may have some needed regulations, but that could be done through our existing agencies. You don't need a separate board to do all that. There are other boards that have already served their purpose. Maybe they were tasked with producing something. They've done that, and they should be sunsetted. It's not, Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government bureau. And not in Florida, though. We don't want that. So we want to retire these things once they've done. So we'll be doing that. I know we've been discussing some of the stuff with the legislature. I think we'll be able to get on the same page on pretty much all of it. And then that will be likely drop in a bill probably by the end of the week, I think, is when all these bills have to drop. So that's going to happen imminently. And look, I can tell you, I've reviewed it. Anything that you would think is vital will be done by existing executive agencies. It's not like if there's something that's important we're not going to do, but we think it may be a redundancy. There's other things that clearly aren't adding value at all. There's other things that have already run its course. So, but I know that, They'll do 70. The media will try to find one or two, and they will try to make you think it's so bad and everything like that. Well, you see what they're doing with the Doge stuff and how they're trying to treat all that. You know, it's interesting. They say Doge is going in, people are getting laid off, these employees, and then the media is very sympathetic to them, which I would be fine with, but they were not sympathetic, the legacy media, when people were losing their jobs in other states because they didn't want to take a COVID shot. They were not sympathetic to the members of the military that got kicked out because of that ridiculous mandate. They're not sympathetic to people who were working on the Keystone Pipeline when Biden mothballed that. You don't hear those sob stories. So, you know, this is all just part of a narrative. At the end of the day, what they're trying to do is they want to defend having this fourth branch of government, this bureaucracy, and they want it to be that they don't think it should matter who gets elected. The bureaucracy should just do whatever the hell it wants. That wasn't how our Constitution was designed. Our Constitution was designed to have a legislative branch who you elect those folks to the House and now to the Senate after 17th Amendment. We have a judicial branch, which is the weakest of the three, but it serves a limited but important role. And then the executive power is lodged in the president. So these agencies report to the president, and if you have bureaucrats that are not willing to carry out the president's policies, the president has every right to show them the door. And especially in the military, he has every right to show them the door. That's how our system was designed. We've gotten away from that because I think if you think it, like if you're on the left, it's like heads they win, tails we lose. If they win the White House, then they can have policy implemented. But if they lose the White House, they have this permanent bureaucracy that continues to implement those same policies that the voters rejected or tries to sabotage the duly elected, usually Republican president. We saw this during Trump 45 really, really aggressively. And then you'll hear, so the president removed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They removed some other senior military leaders, I think the chief of naval operations, some others. And you hear like bedwetting in D.C. media, oh my gosh, he's doing all this. First of all, Obama removed hundreds of generals and admirals when he was there. But they have this idea that, oh, the president is trying to remove institutional resistance to his policies amongst the military. The military officers have no right to indulge in institutional resistance. They are pledged to support and defend the Constitution, so obviously the directives have to be lawful, but if they disagree with a policy, they have no right to try to sabotage that policy. And if they're not able to carry out those policies, then they should just find another line of work. That's the way the system works. If you believe that unelected military officers should provide institutional resistance to the duly elected president just from carrying out his job, then you would not be somebody that the founding fathers would have appreciated, because they were very concerned about military being superior to civil authority. They wanted the military always to answer to civil authority. And when president has policies, some of his policies are going to conflict with what the DC foreign policy blob wants. And I think there's a mindset up there that you can't do that. And then if someone tries to do that, even if they were duly elected, that you somehow, as an unelected member of either the military or some of these other agencies, have a right to try to kneecap it. That's not the way it works. And so when you see them going in and making personnel changes, one, constitutionally valid 100%, also removing some of these other folks in some of these other agencies that's now working its way through the courts, ultimately those are going to be found to be valid uses of Article 2 power as well. I mean, we can't have a situation where you have agencies that are able to just be free agents. That means your liberty is not protected. We elect one president to oversee all that. That's who these agencies need to be accounted to. All right, yes, one more.
So you announced the Dodge task force. So how will this task force decide what government spending is unnecessary and should be cut?
I'm sorry, there was some traffic. Can you repeat?
You announced the Dodge task force. So how will the government decide? Sorry, how will this task force decide what government spending is unnecessary?
Okay, so the question is, how are we going to decide what's necessary, what's unnecessary? So With the state agencies, we've been doing this anyways. So, for example, we police every contract over a certain amount, and if there's any DEI or anything slipped in, we stop it. There's other things that we do to do that. So that's us with our people in our budget office that go through these agencies. So that we do that as a matter of course. We're able to stop things. Sometimes we have to cancel. So that happens. But what they're doing federally is they're using technology and artificial intelligence to be able to review payments and all these other things. We have not, this is pretty new technology. So we want to apply that technology to our auditing efforts for our state agencies. Maybe it's not going to lead to a lot. Maybe it can help us find things that is harder when you're just doing normal stuff. And we've done a good job, but I think this lets us do better. So if we find a contract, and I don't think it would be that there is DEI by name, but I think what they could do is try to reframe it, call it something else, and put it in. And to the naked eye, that may be more difficult to see, but in AI, they may be able to flag it and do that. So that'll be one thing that we're doing. The other thing we're doing is we're doing full audits of our state university system. We want to know how much administrative bloat is there, how many courses are being offered that is like ideological studies and we can just do away with, how many of this. So this really needs to be done. We've put in, with the legislature and me supporting, we've increased the money to our universities dramatically over the last 6 years. I mean, a lot. Definitely by 50%. Some say it's been close to double. I'd have to go back and look, but it's been a big increase. Now, your kids and grandkids, if they live in Florida, they pay $6,300 for in-state tuition. That's the lowest in the United States, and we're proud of that. Bright Futures, you can pay 0 or 75% off, depending on where you do. We even have the ability for out-of-state students to qualify for in-state tuition if their grandparent is a Florida resident. Now, they have to be good students and meet certain things, but that's a great perk. So we're happy to offer all that. We're happy to have not raised tuition, and we've provided funding, and our university's done well, but we need to make sure that we just don't have bloat run amok. And the one thing I know nationally, and maybe Florida has avoided this, we're going to find out, but if you look when they started really pumping in a lot of student loan money decades ago, it didn't increase the quality of the education. What it did is, if you look at the administrative bloat, as more loan money got put, that more administrative staff. Now, I don't think those administrative staff are increasing the academic experience. I don't think that they're helping students learn better in the classroom. I think it's tangential items. And so we want to look at that. We also want to look at, we were the first state in America to abolish DEI in our public university systems. So these offices were disbanded, but I want to know, where did those employees go? Are they burrowed into other things? Are they doing DEI under another name? If that's the case, you have a right to know that, and then we have a responsibility to end that. So I think the universities is going to be really, really significant, and we look forward to doing that. And then, with my executive order, they are going to be conducting audits of local governments based on publicly available information. But I also think that we want to have and it'll be like for a year, not forever, but like an ability to go in and audit. I mean, I look at some of these governments, whether it's Alachua, Broward, some of them. You've got a lot of problems with how these things are being managed. And people are being taxed to high heaven, particularly with property taxes, which is another thing we're going to give relief on. Because, you buy a home for $250,000, and then 10 years later, someone assesses it at $800,000. Even if you have homestead, you're still paying more. It can't protect you against all that. So people are really getting pinched by the property taxes, and especially elderly on fixed income. It's like they bought land, they bought a house. Many of them just paid off a mortgage because they didn't buy their home outright. And so now they're just living in freedom, except they have to cut a check to the government every year, just basically paying rent to live on their own property. And so that has really pinched a lot of people. People need relief from that. Now, we can't just do that through normal legislation. We would need to put something on the ballot for 2026. And so we're working on that. And we're doing analysis studies. We're doing all that. But I can tell you there's going to be something on the ballot that is going to give Floridians an opportunity to vote themselves relief from what property taxes have done to them. I think it's really, really important, and I think it's part of a whole 9 yards. But, you know, some local governments are better than others. I can guarantee you, I can show you examples in Florida where you've had a massive increase in spending over the last 6 to 8 years, but not necessarily an increase in the services provided in a meaningful way. And again, it varies by different counties in the state, but I do think it will be helpful for folks. And, you know, what I found is in certain parts of the state, you know, the media is more partisan left, so they don't really even cover some of this stuff that has to do with local government for some of these areas, which I think is a big mistake. So we're going to have Doge. We're going to be able to make a difference. So there's going to be a lot. And so on the initial review, we put out that they're already exposing some of this, you know, $777,000 for equity training or something like that in this county. It's like, okay, do you want to pay property taxes to fund that training? There's other things that are done, and you just kind of scratch your head. So I think people are sensitive to how government spends money right now more than they have been in more recent years. Lord knows, I mean, COVID was a massive gusher. There was a lot of waste there. But now people, I think, are attuned to it because I think they've seen the debt balloon nationally. I think they realize that change needs to be made, but I think that's for all levels of government. So we want to do it. We want to make a difference. And as I said, I've talked about what we've done being Doge. Doge was cool. That means we have taken efforts in Florida to do this, reduce government, reduce spending. That has been done anyways, but I think these new tools can really help us. So, okay, enough of that. Now's the time. I think we're going to move back here. I know the media is going to move over to be able to snap some photos. Is it raining a little bit outside? It's not raining, so you guys are good. And so we're going to be over here. We're going to do the initial dig, and we will call it a day. So thanks, everybody.